Welcome to Salt Your Pasta Water podcast. Today I have one of the people I've always wanted to kind of just hang out with. I think that this is going to be a really fun podcast. We've already kind of started chatting beforehand. We have a little construction happening at Grana right now. So we kind of have to start the conversation a little bit before, but I have Zach Meloy here from Dirt Church Ceramics. Zach, what's up, my man? How we doing?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Man. I'm good. Thank you for coming, dude. I mean, we've kind of been trying to do this for a little while, and then kind of had to stop for a little bit because we're,
I mean, that's kind
running
of
restaurants.
That's kind of the story in general, right? It's that everything's been stop and start.
Oh yeah.
Here we are. We persevere.
Absolutely, man. So, a lot of people I feel like know you already, but we're gonna start from the beginning anyway. Well, I'm gonna admit something right now. I've been following you in cooking for a very long time, even when I was in Connecticut, because I just felt like you were probably the most talented chef in Atlanta by far. So I just wanted to tell you that because looking at your food, man, looking at your food, looking at what you do, man, like all kidding aside, dude, you're one talented motherfucker. You really are.
Thank you.
And you should be really proud of everything you've accomplished.
I'm really thankful.
Awesome, man.
Thank
Awesome. So start from the beginning, dude. Where'd you grow up? How'd you get to this point? Like, I want to hear it all. And I'm going to interrupt like crazy, so I apologize, but walk me through it, man. Where you from?
We were just, I am actually seeing now that we were kind of talking about revisiting roots a little bit, right? I think that's kind of most important. Mm-hmm. So I'm truly revisiting roots because I've just moved back out to the burbs. That's where I'm from. I grew up in East Cobb, up off Johnson's Ferry Road. I went to Hope High School, go Greyhounds.
We were looking at houses before we just bought this last one and Hope because school districts are just fantastic up there. So
it's just a spot to raise a family, right? My folks moved there. My father was Air Force pilot and a Delta pilot. So
nice.
We were like the folks that moved here in right at the beginning of the 80s.
Yeah.
So I grew up in this like super conservative white space.
Yeah.
And it really was like I had a tremendous childhood, right? Like I was really fortunate to grow up where I did. But it was also like it was super boring.
Yeah.
Super boring.
I believe
you get to teenage years, angsty years, and then it's like, okay, you're ready to bust out.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's the idea. Right?
Yeah.
So I didn't make it too far in busting out. Like when I graduated, I moved to Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, nice.
To go to like a small Christian school over there.
Okay.
It's called Samford.
Okay.
Samford University. Studied Spanish and fine arts. I learned how to do some ceramic work.
So it wasn't culinary right off the bat?
No.
Okay.
In fact, like I had never really had, up until that point, hadn't really had food service jobs.
Oh, wow.
But I was working, I started working when I was 14, as soon as I could. But never really did food service.
Okay.
But for me, the connection for food, like early on, was really about my mom. My dad was the type of person that really eats to live.
Yeah.
He doesn't really care.
Yeah.
You could just give him, beer and almonds.
Yeah.
If he could survive on that, he would.
Yeah.
And for my mom, she was really like a live to eat type, where it was less about the cooking for her and more about the eating and kind of the fellowship that went up, that went with it. And so we, she always asked, she always wanted to know what we had eaten that day. That was always the first thing that she would say, right? It's like, hey, what'd you eat today?
That's
and
great.
so I always, I started cataloging all my memories around food, just so that I could, because I would always have to think back.
Well, like we just talked about before, right, with the tomato.
Yep.
That it's the same thing, right? Like we grew up kind of the same way when it comes to being around the garden all the time.
Right.
So for me, it was like, no tomato was better than that tomato I had, in 1989 from 64 Victory Street in Stamford, Connecticut, and that's it. And now, since then, you're searching for that. Like you said, you're searching for that hot stem, right? So you're searching for that. You're searching for the eggplant that my mom would take right out of the garden, go in the kitchen, slice paper thin, flour, egg, breadcrumb, fry on both sides, and you didn't even wait for it to get to the point of what it was supposed to become. You're eating that shit like that. Because I mean, as kids, like we're not fucking waiting for that shit. We just want to eat it.
But think about, without going too far down the rabbit hole, right? But think about how you even have, like, think about that you actually have memories associated with even just like the smell of the oil.
Yeah,
right? Like,
absolutely.
Things like the linen drawers opening.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how, for me, I graduated college and really didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah. And ended up working at Starbucks drive-through at 5 in the morning, hating everything.
Of course.
And someone said, well, all you ever do is talk about food. You thought about going to culinary school, and up until that moment I had. Yeah. And so I immediately applied to go to Johnson Wales out in Denver.
Okay.
It's just like kind of breaking free a little more from the South and where I got raised and moved out west. Still hadn't really had much of a food service job at this point. I had started bussing tables for Frank Stitt over in Birmingham. Okay. And he's got, Bottega and Highlands and Fawn Farm. Yeah. The idea for me, I got that job thinking, well, okay, I'm just going to make some beer money. I just want the most amount of money for the least amount of work. Yeah. What can I do? And I said, okay, I'm going to do a busboy, I guess, at the fanciest restaurant that would let me in. And so on my very first day, they hand me the menu and they say, all right, well, you need to learn this. Menu and wine list. And I kind of looked at them like, I think you made a mistake. I'm a busboy, and they said, first of all, it's a waiter's assistant. And second of all, you need to learn this. Yeah. And the idea was that we all wore, someone, a guest was just going to grab somebody with an apron. Yeah. They don't give a shit. And so they wanted, everybody to know the answer to a question about the menu. And so, I dove in, feeling like it was homework, and by the end of it, like I was enthralled. Because that was the first time that I got to learn about things like fennel, or different types of cheeses, or wine regions. And, I mean, they took it so seriously. And, I really, it really, struck a chord. Yeah. So I ended up working like all of the positions in front of the house first. And this was all before, deciding that, oh, maybe I can go cook. So I went to culinary school.
When you were a busboy, did you have, so like, I feel like everybody's got the story, right? So like, my brother-in-law here, he's the general manager, his name is Ryan, and he was a busboy at my restaurant in Connecticut in 2014, 2015. And we have the meatball flight on the menu here, and we had the meatball flight on the menu at that restaurant. Yeah. And I remember him bringing it over and going to drop one of the meatballs down, and as he was dropping it down, he tilted the other one. Oh my God. And each one, he was so frozen, he watched each one roll off the plate and onto this woman's lap. Yeah. So it still, and then anytime, he was there probably for like another 3 months, but anytime after that there was a meatball flight up in the window, he wouldn't run it because he was so fucking deathly afraid of it. So for me, I was 13 years old, I was a dishwasher, became a busboy, because I was like, by then I was in high school and like I got the itch of working. So like now, like I still graduated with really good grades, but I just didn't want to be at school. Same. I wanted to work, So I remember, first day they made me a busboy. And this is when, you didn't have sanitizing buckets, you have to run around with a spray gun. So I'm spraying this thing, and it was a wooden table with plastic on top of it. I go hit it, and I'm paying attention. I'm 13 years old, I don't fucking care what's happening. I go to spray it, and this woman has a bare back dress on, and it hits off the table all on her back. So now she jumps up freaking out. So I start wiping her back with the dirty towel. So come to find out, which I didn't know at that point, but the woman was one of the boss's best friends. So that's what kind of saved me, because she's like, it's gonna happen to anybody, let it happen to me. But that was probably, other than like dropping some plates or like some glassware every time, but that still to this day is just drilled in. I had to clean the grease trap for 3 weeks in a row. 3 weeks in a row. It broke my fucking heart.
Yeah, but how about some old school punishment?
Yeah, cleaning grease traps? Yeah. Not like today, they just suck it out. You had to clean that shit back in the day.
Brutal.
Oh yeah.
Brutal. Yeah, yes, I definitely had one of those moments. Yeah. It involved a tray of a lot of ice water and a woman who was wearing like a fox stole around her neck, and
So now you're in Denver. You're in culinary school.
Yeah, culinary school was great. It was just like getting paid to play with food, really. I mean, you know, on a side note, culinary school is a scam. Do not go.
Absolutely, dude. We just talked about it literally like before. If I had the opportunity, we talk about it all the time. People come in here, their kids want to go to culinary school. I go, do not send your kids to culinary school. I go, send them to me, and then I'll send them to another chef, and let's just do it that way. Like, so
make money while you learn.
Yeah. So and then you're coming out of school 70K in debt, maybe more. CIA is 100K now. And for fucking nuts, for what? I go, let me ask you a question. This is what we were talking about before. I was like, so fucking chef so-and-so, what would he have done when COVID hit? Well, what was he gonna tell you? Half these dudes never even ran a restaurant. What the hell do they know? It's by the book, and that's it. I'm like, okay, well, what happens when this breaks? Half of them can't even fix the fucking broken aioli.
Yeah.
It's throw it out. Oh my god! And so a couple of years ago, I was actually sitting down with one of the women that was our PR company at that point. I was like, I was like, why don't we start culinary school? I'm like, let me get like 5 of like the better chefs in the city. Let's say, hey, your parents cut us a check for $5 grand. That $5 grand is going to go into an account. If you fulfill the entire year without calling out at all, you get back your $5 grand with interest, and I give you a job to work with us. And then every 3 months, you go work for another chef. And then and like they were like, great idea. And then COVID hit. We never fucking did it. But I'm like, man, I just think, why? Like, why would? And there's like one of the girls is my sous chef right now, Tara, sous chef at my restaurant in Decatur, White Bull. She started working for me at the Optimist, and then she basically come the whole way. Now she's a sous chef, and she's a fucking badass. But before that, she only took high school cooking, you know. And that's it. I'm like, don't go to culinary school for what? To what? To come out of school in debt, making $10 an hour, and you can't pay it back.
Well, and you really have to think about the fact too that now that we're in this kind of transition where traditional fine dining, for the most part, has kind of died. Or maybe let's say that it hasn't died, but it's kind of fractured, right? And casual dining too, where you have so many different styles of outlets that all of the training that you get in culinary school is, I mean, it really could be taught on the job.
Yeah, I agree. Without a doubt.
It kind of should be. Yeah. But I don't know.
When we do operations meeting every week for the restaurants, and we'll chat with the team, or where's everybody at, and like that. And then once a month we go over P&L as a team. This is what we spent. This is what you need to work on, so on and so forth. If you need the equation for this, I'll show you how to do it. But like at the end of the day, you got to be able to like. The teacher ain't teaching you this.
Well, they don't do real work either, right? They don't have a clue. They'll teach you the math, but it'll never be that you got to do all your restaurant math. Wow, you got stock pots on, and the dishwasher's broken,
or the dishwasher doesn't show for it. Yeah. Which I do agree.
I had a pretty cool experience after culinary school where I moved to Costa Rica.
That's awesome.
And lived in Costa Rica mainly, and I got to go to Guatemala, and I got to stay in Nicaragua, and I got to travel around too, and I was down there for buses.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and then moved back.
Wow.
So I moved back in 2008.
Okay.
Or 9, something like that.
Okay.
And had to take a job, here in town, and it was like, it was starting over, basically.
Yeah.
Where, I had to basically take like a $10 an hour fry cook job or whatever at night, and I just felt, I did that for, 10 months or so, and I started to feel like I was going to lose my mind.
Yeah.
And I had seen an ad in Creative Loafing for the Goat Farm. And I was just trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do with myself? This sucks, right?
Were you doing any ceramics in Costa Rica?
No.
So you were...
I graduated college, and I didn't do ceramics again for 15, 16 years.
Wow.
I mean, because it takes this, space and equipment, and I just didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
I effectively lived out of a suitcase.
Yeah.
Basically for 6 years.
Yeah.
And so I saw that they had, art studios to rent, and I said, well, maybe I could, turn one of those art studios into a dining room. something. Like maybe I could do dinners over there somehow, right? So that was 2011. And it was, man, yeah, so with my last check from this one restaurant, one restaurant group, I split and, I bought like an old display table. It was at like a hotel surplus store. It said that it was an old Abercrombie and Fitch, like underwear display table or whatever. And I cut the legs off of it. And, we had this 200 square foot corner of the basement of the goat farm over there. Like, it still smells like machine oil from the 40s. We had no running water. There was one electrical socket. We used to power a dorm room fridge and like a pancake room. And that's how, that's how it started. And that was stupid. Yeah. First week I paid for everybody and said, will you please tell some more people? Second week I paid for everybody. Please will you tell somebody? Third week, same thing. Fourth week, same thing. And I was freaking out. Because I wasn't even I was making money. It was like just losing. And so I had a friend come who had like a food blog when that was a thing, and said, will you please write just something, please? And she did, and then it got picked up by one of the, I think it was like Urban Daddy or something. And so then our little mailing list thing where we would mail people the menu for the week, it went from like 12 friends and family that I could put on there, 400 overnight, and it never stopped growing until I actually just ended the email address and
So let me ask you something. So it seems like for you to want to go and leave a job that you're making money to go, so you have to have some sort of entrepreneurial aspect of your life at some point in this, right? Because I mean, like you want to either do some cool shit or it really is, man.
No, it is.
It really is.
It is.
For sure. So were you doing things as a kid? Like were you like I was telling people, like I used to sell lemonade and baseball cards.
No, and that was really interesting too. In fact, when I was a kid, all I really wanted to do was skateboard. Like, in fact, I thought that was going to be a job for a while. No, but I always was making stuff. And I always knew that I didn't, like I never fit in. It was always like, there was always this weird, like, a disconnect. And so, man, I never really felt, I always just felt like I was spinning my wheels when I was a kid. And then when I was old enough to, be out and about, and it was like, I'm just gonna make my own way. And so if you were to map out my career path, it's been weird, like all over the place, up, down. I mean, I never, before opening my own restaurant, I never had a title higher than A in a sous chef. And then it was just like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna do this. And just forced it to happen. It was like,
So how'd you get from? So what happened right after the goat farm? So like how long that lasted?
Goat farm went for a year in that state where I was cooking everything in a little apartment across town, like off of Ponce, and driving it over. And so I would do this thing where it was like take all the dishes, linens, glasses, silverware, food, wine, everything. Pack it up, drive it across town, unpack it, set up this dining room in. I'm trying to make what looks like a potential crime scene into a dining room, right? And then I would serve the dinner, and then pack it all up because there was no running water. Drove it all back, unpacked it. I did that for a year. And at the end of the year, it was like, I mean, it got to the point that it was a job at that point. And then I said, okay, I'm going to kill myself doing this. And so that's when the goat farm invited us to move into the goat farm. So then we moved, 3 floors straight up, and then we had the loft space with a table that seated 18 people and a full kitchen, and we lived there. Like I had 2 full-grown Weimaraners and a newborn baby sleeping in the closet while we had 18 people having dinner. So we did that for another year and a half.
Yeah.
And then we crowdsourced the startup money for Better.
Oh, wow.
From that.
Yeah.
So it's like that pancake griddle was, I mean, Better Half came from a pancake griddle.
That's amazing.
It was amazing.
That's amazing.
When I think back about the story, it kind of reminds me of, have you ever heard that? There was a project that this lady did where she started with one red paper clip and she kept trading
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And she kept trading up each time
for
something else until she you know, effectively purchased a home or house. It was the same thing where it was like started with nothing. I mean, like we shared a wall with like people doing heroin.
Yeah.
You know, and trying to do these dinners all the way up to a restaurant, and it was always just like trade it up, trade it up. It was hard, but it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it had this really amazing kind of organic growth and stories.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So when I was in Connecticut, I was there. You know, so on and so forth. Whatever happened up until 2010. 2010, I opened up this pizzeria, and it was called Pizzeria Rosso, right? So it was no bigger than like the size of this table. I had one single deck Baker's Pride pizza oven, and then there was no other kitchen space. So I was illegally cooking off of butane burners. Yeah. I had a fryer back there, and the whole thing. No hood, nothing. Yeah. I had the only ventilation we had. There was a fan on the ceiling, and I just literally kept it on all day. The AC was broke. Got up to like 100.
Ceiling fan.
Yeah, 120 degrees in the restaurant all day. And it was 500 square feet. So it was me, it was another cook, and then my dad manned the oven. That's it. And we did fine. So one day, it's 125 degrees in there. It's fucking August, middle August, and it starts raining really, really bad. We always had this leak in the ceiling, right? It was getting worse and worse and worse. So we probably have 100 orders on deck of pizza, because Friday night pizza, everybody wants pizza. 100 pizzas on deck, yeah. So I'm banging them out as much. It was me. That's it. Me and my dad was watching the oven. My dad was also the delivery driver. So when he's out delivering, I'm doing both. So I'm pushing out these pizza. I'm flipping them, doing it on there, putting them in the oven like that. All of a sudden, the drip starts. The drip gets bigger and faster and bigger. And all of a sudden, dude, I go to put this pizza oven in the oven, and I'm like, from me to you, because I had this lung stick, and the fucking ceiling caves in. Right? Caves in.
This is making me anxious.
I call everybody. I said we're closed. I shut all the windows. I shut all the fucking lights off. I even think I left the oven on. I was like, I'm just aggravated. I leave. On my way leaving, I drive by this space in the worst area of Norwalk, Connecticut, right? Yep. Where nobody in their right mind would put a fucking restaurant there. So now, so now, I mean, I think we had $3,200 in the bank, you know, at this point. That's it.
Yeah.
Find a space for a lease, call them. Literally the next day, I started calling the woman at 6 o'clock in the morning. I finally got her on the phone. It was like 9:05. She's like, "Are you the fucking idiot that kept calling me?" I was like, "Yeah, I need to talk to you right now." I was like, "I need the space. I need a lease." I was like, "My ceiling caved in. I need to let them know that, you know, because they were like refused to fix the ceiling at this point. They wouldn't fix the roof." Old guy was like 92 years old. He's just like, "Let me just die in peace." I was like, "Okay." So nothing. They wouldn't do anything. So I really need the space. Calling her. Finally, she responds. I was like, "I need a lease." I was like, "I don't care what you're asking for. Keep my rent under $2,500 a month." And it was 1,600 square feet. Keep it around $2,500 a month. I'll figure out the rest. I was like, "And I need money to build this place out, because these people left in the middle of the night and took everything." So she's like, "All right." She goes, "I'll give you 40 grand. I go, "Cool. 40 grand, TI money, so on and so forth." Got the space, $2,500 a month. I had 3,200 in the bank, and I took 3 Amexes at 20 grand a pop and swiped 60,000 on the fucking Amex, right? Yeah, so I get the whole restaurant, get the whole restaurant open for like $92,000, right? So we opened the restaurant.
Yeah.
I couldn't pay my car, couldn't pay anything at this point. Like my credit score went from like a 790 to like a 495. I think all I was able to do was write my name on stuff. I don't even think they were allowed to cash it at this point. So
oh man, it was holding all of it.
Oh yeah, it was awful, right? So day 2, restaurant's open, and I forgot to pay the electric bill. Boom, shuts all the electric off, right? So now I'm like, fuck it, we're opening the restaurant. I don't give a shit. I go, we'll figure out what the fuck. I go, put fans everywhere. What happens? The minute I go to do it, it's 3:30. Health inspector walks in. I go, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "Well, your neighbors are complaining that it smells next door." And I'm like, so shut the restaurant down. Call Connecticut Light and Power. "Hey man, I need the electric bond." They're like, "We need a $2,500 deposit." I was like, "I owe you $1,300, and where do you want me to get $2,500 bucks?" So I have to open up another credit card. I had to put it in my dad's name. I still didn't tell him to this day, so he's gonna find out now. I put it in my dad's name.
Sorry, Dad.
Yeah, I swipe it, and then didn't like literally. I bounced my first check at that restaurant, and since then has never bounced a check again. But like it was
still going?
Fucking no. So that restaurant, so like you were saying, I kept trading up. So I sold. So I got rid of my pizzeria, opened this restaurant, sold it, moved to Atlanta. So it did really well for a while.
Okay.
Yeah. So it did really well for a long time. I was there for 4.5 years, sold it at the 4.5 year mark, and then unfortunately got screwed on the sale. So like I got my initial 70 grand up front, and then the guy never made another payment again after that. And then it went out of business since. So, but I took that money, and then same thing, White Bull, Opal White Bull. I had 70K, and I had 3 Amexes at 20,000 a pop, and opened the whole restaurant for $130,000. And and then same thing, man. For the first 18 months, like it was fucking rough there. Like it was.
Wait,
rough.
what year was that?
This was 2018. It was rough because remember, we are the space that everything failed. So it was 17.
What had been there before?
It was Truman's before us. It was a Persian restaurant before that. It was 17 things in 20 years.
Yeah.
So we're the longest reigning as of right now for the past 20 years. So we're hit 3.5 years. Yeah, I know, man. But like people would come by and be like, the place is cursed, we're not coming in. The place is cursed, we're not coming in. I'm like, come on, man. Other restaurateurs literally coming up to me and being like, can I give you 6 months? I'm like, give me 6 months? Like, what is wrong with you, man? And like, how are you wishing bad on me, dude? Are you out of your mind? But I mean, listen, since then, 18 months in, and then it got better, thank God. But dude, it was like, I try to explain to you all the time, like, I always had that entrepreneurship in me, right? Where, like, I wasn't afraid to go to zero at all because I don't need much in life, right? Like I don't need a lot to be happy. I'm good with my vehicle, place to live. Mm-hmm. I have 2 kids now, so as long as they're taken care of and my wife's taken care of, I don't really need much. You know what I mean? Like this bag that I have, my partner bought for me. My computer, the business paid for it. But like I don't need a lot. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like it's one of those things where I feel like sometimes people they get stuck in that rat race for so long. Like, what else can I get? What else can I get? What else can I get? And then by the time you look at it, you have 7 cars. You can't pay for any of them. You're paying your dishwasher $9 an hour. You know what I mean? And there's like, what's the fun in that? Like, the whole point of running this now is not, I don't give a shit about me. If you do what you love, it sounds cliche, but if you do what you love, the money's gonna come. It just finds its way. Yeah. For now, like, we have staff that, like, we pay our dishwashers are $13 to $15 an hour. Not because we have to, it's because we want to. The restaurants are doing well. Yeah. Why the hell not? So I think it's I think that path, like, trading up all the time makes a lot of sense. So you get the better half. Better half opens. Yeah. How difficult was that process?
I mean, again, I had no idea what I was doing. So I had just basically said, I want to open a fancy Waffle House. Yeah. Was the idea, right? As far as like just thinking about the kitchen, but again, there wasn't any space, or not much. Yeah. And it was.
How many seats was that restaurant?
With the bar, it was 48.
Yeah, that was my restaurant today, 48 seats.
Yeah. We started with 50. It was 10 up there at the counter, and then 40 out on the floor. Yeah. So we took 2 seats away. And it was a learning experience, right? Because again, like I'm not the planning type, the one that's like super exacting. It was like there was a lot of it that was learned on the fly, which obviously led to growing pains here and there, especially trying to build a business around my family. Yeah. Was hard. Yeah. Was really bumpy. And so for the first, I think really when I look back at it now and I compare it to other restaurants, it's kind of the same, like you make it to the 1 year, you make it to the 3 year, and it's kind of the same, and then there was something that just really clicked, and what it was is that when I had kind of a right-hand man show up, just like out of the blue, and it felt like up until then it was like I was doing everything and just like drowning. Yeah. And then Sean showed up, Pip, and it was like, it was the first time that I'd ever really had anybody that was like legitimately there for like, that I really felt was like there for the business, to actually like for real be there. As opposed, I mean, because you know how it is when you own a restaurant. It's yes, it is the way that you are making money, but it is not a job, right? And it doesn't matter who else is in the building and how much they love what they do. It's still just a job for them.
Absolutely.
And so he really was somebody that took ownership because he really took pride in what he did. And at that point, it was like then things like really started kind of chugging along. And I was able to achieve some, just like. Really kind of crazy personal, professional goals, like to be featured in Toothache magazine, to be featured in Art Culinary magazine. It was just like, I mean, when we were in, kids in culinary school and just like looking in those magazines, looking at Art Culinary, I'm like, oh my God. And then to go and flip through it and to have one show up, I mean, amazing. Like was really, really wild. So. Yeah, restaurant was really going, and in 2018, had to close the restaurant. I had a family shift, a dynamic shift, if you will, and for me it was really like the kind of the story and the narrative and everything behind it about it being this family focused husband and wife couple against all odds whole narrative. Clearly was no longer there, right? So it was like, okay, well, I guess I gotta shut this thing down and figure out what the new narrative is. And went back to the goat farm just briefly. Did a supper club. It's just kind of like it really did feel like the restaurant was like really blowing and going, and then all of a sudden it was like, there we were, turn the lights out, and we had piles of boxes on the sidewalk. We were moving. So Goat Farm is kind of like a halfway house, really, where I was trying to figure out, what's going to happen, where am I going to go? Moved out back out to East Cobb, that bitter pill of being the guy that the prodigal son, as they say, that it's homecoming, and have a house out there. I was signed up to help open a restaurant out in Woodstock. Like out in the downtown area where they're kind of, like out,
they were doing a lot of work there at some point, right?
In all of the like little neighborhoods that have some sort of a town center, all of those little town center things are being all cubesified, right? And so I was slated to help open a restaurant out there, and then COVID came, and it was just like, I got kind of ghosted, and it was like really, scary for a couple different reasons. And so I just started making stuff. Like really had the space finally to set up a studio, like where I can always be producing, and started focusing on the ceramics again, real hard. Which has been good. And then once the regulations, or at least like, there's not a lot of regulating as far as the COVID response goes. So as soon as at least we felt like we knew what was going on, then I started doing masked up dinners. Like, so I'll take the whole kind of supper club format to someone's home and do snacks and cocktails and kind of a multi-course paired
Are you doing a bit of them now, or are you like, how many do you think you're doing a month? One or two or more?
I'm turning them down. Yeah, I have the potential. I have the potential to do more, and I'm actually having to say I need to kind of slow it down just a little bit. So that I'm trying to find the balance, like I was saying, between the ceramics and cooking.
It's a lot.
It's insane. It's insane.
And you were saying like you have orders, like you have orders that are coming in regularly or.
Well, that's the thing is that, so I all of this was kind of like, the comparison that I make is kind of like, I say that it's like trying to change a tire while you're on the hood of the car and you're going 90. Because, my whole focus was restaurant, my family. I mean, and they were really interwoven.
Yeah.
Like, so when one of them wasn't working, neither was the other. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you know, I've been cooking for 22 years, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well now you have to figure out what it is you're going to do. And thankfully I had, you know, some of the social media network to kind of just sell random stuff. Which I'm learning is really insane. It's like, just for a while there, it was like someone would say, hey, I really want this, can you make it? And I would say, yeah, I guess so. And you know, so it would be like, you know, I would make a set of 6 plates, and then someone would want a bird feeder, or, you know, and it was just, and I realized, you know, now that I have more time to kind of sit and compare the two, cooking and the ceramics, just how similar they are. And it was the equivalent of me like owning a restaurant where someone could come in and say, you know what, I really want meatloaf today. And you got to make meatloaf, and then somebody else is like, I want chop suey. And you got to make that. And so I'm trying to kind of hone it in, you know, maybe not hone it in, but trying to kind of corral all the ideas and figure out like, okay, well, how is this going to work, and how is this going to work, and then also, well, I got to be a dad, which is job one.
Well, that's one of the things I admire about you the most, man. It's like just seeing the pictures that you have online, and like you and your daughters. Like, it's the same way for me. Like, I say it all the time. Everything I do is for them. So like, you know, like I mean, I turn down private pasta making classes because I would rather, like, on Sunday's a day with my kids, right? Like, I'll work 6 days, I'll work 100 hours in 6 days, but Sundays I need to shut it all off, and it's for them. So like every once in a while I'll do some stuff here or there. If it's like, you know, a friend or something like that, I'll take care of it. But I'll take Monday off, or I'll take Tuesday off, because, you know, like my son started kindergarten today, right? And like, I can't believe he's in kindergarten. Like, no, we drove. We had to drive. I know, we had to drive just because. So for me, like, you know, I've been taking my kid to daycare since he was 1. Right. So like, I've kind of already, I cried it all out for the first year. Like, from 1 to 2, I cried. I mean, you know, he's 1, you know, and I'm taking him, and somebody else is watching. Like, I literally cried for a year every day I dropped him off. Then it got easier. So today was easier for me, but I didn't realize that today was the first time my wife dropped one of the kids off. And I was like, oh, okay. And like, you know, all week she's been like, man, it's so rough. And then I didn't realize that the 2-year-old was sad that the 5-year-old going to school. So I'm like, so I come back, and like the two girls are like, I was like, oh my god. I was like, guys, I want to stay home, but like, I have to be at the restaurant today. So I told him, I was like, the minute you pick Colin up, call Dad. I want to talk all about it. And I was like, come to the restaurant. And like, he's like, all right, Dad. So listen. So like, day 1, so like, you're gonna throw me a party, right? And I'm like, it don't work like that, son. I was like, we'll throw you a party when you hit 18 and you graduate high school. I was like, how's that sound? But yeah, I admire the shit out of that, man. Because like, it's like finding people that are like-minded like you when it comes to stuff like about, you know, your kids and stuff like that, and like, and the way they treat food and everything like that. It's like, you find that, you know, that camaraderie, or that one thing that you kind of mesh on. And that's why, like, every time you post a picture of you and your girls, I'm like,
I try not to do it very often.
No, same, 100%. You know, sometimes like today, like, you know, he's in kindergarten, like, I'm gonna make a post later and shit like that. But like, I agree. Sometimes the way I look at it is, again, I really don't give a shit what people say or what they think, but sometimes they're like, oh, you're hoarding your kids out. And I'm like, oh god, here we go. People have made comments like that before, like, you know.
That's because people say wild shit.
Oh yeah, people, they're fucking, you know, I changed my mindset on that. Like, you know, people always have stupid shit to say, but I kind of had to like switch the way I think and be like, damn, that guy's really having a fucking rough day. Like, think about in your mind what you need to do for yourself to go on somebody else's shit and talk bad about them. Like, first of all, you got a huge set of balls. Second of all, you must be really in a dark place. For you to take time out of your day to go do that, I'm like, man, I feel bad for that person.
That's everybody now.
Absolutely. But it's funny. So I've had chefs on, I've had restaurant owners on, I've had so on and so forth, and you know, and one of the comments made was, oh, the camaraderie in the Atlanta food scene, and I was like, oh man, I was like, I don't know if I really agree with that. I was like, you know, there's a lot of people, like when I opened White Bull, that legit told me I'm failing, like I'm gonna fail.
Yeah.
You know, I've had other people walk in here and legit say the same thing. And at the end of the day, it's like, it took a lot for me to start deleting people off my Instagram and Facebook, where I got to a point where I was like, I'm following the people I want to follow, like people like you, people like Hudson. I follow people like that have the same mindset. Like Hudson's all about farming his own stuff and then putting it on his menu. You're about taking care of your family and doing shit that you're really cool and really, really into. And that's the same thing, like, yeah, we just announced another restaurant, we're open a restaurant, so on and so forth, but I'm not gonna do it if I don't have a support staff. So that's what I started doing. Like, we have a kid named Elliot here. He's not a kid, he's as old as me, but like, Elliot, if it wasn't for him, and if it wasn't for Pat at White Bull, I can't do another restaurant. It's impossible. How are you gonna do that? And the thing is sometimes too is like, do I want to do another restaurant, or do I want to keep the two and just make the money we're making? It's fine. Like, when's enough? When's enough money enough? And that's the biggest problem now. It's like, and then you have investors. So now you have to deliver.
Sure.
So now, granted, Ron has investors, but the other two don't, which the new one doesn't. But it's, but when is enough enough? Is it 7 restaurants and you sell them all? Is it 4 and then you sit on that? Like, that's the thing I battle with all the time.
Well, that's the thing. Because like, what's the final?
I never want to lose the interaction I have every day with my team.
But the bigger it gets, the more you do.
Exactly, it's gonna be impossible. And that's what I'm battling every day. It's like, all right, because I get to see them all every day. Yeah, I get to see them all every day.
Yeah.
With 3, one's gonna suffer. Not in any way of like a business. It's just gonna suffer. Like, I'm not gonna get to see them all the time.
They're your kids.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and that's how I treat every restaurant. Like, it's my kids. Yeah, they really are.
And I've seen, just in being here in Atlanta, from bouncing baby to my dusty old self now, like, I've seen how these groups come up and then they hit a point where they clearly do not care anymore.
No.
And then what you're doing has been, commodified, and then it's formulaic, and then it's moving towards corporation, which I understand if the idea is you gotta make money.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're not seeing now that like big money is killing all of us right now globally,
without a doubt,
then I mean, I feel like that's personally that's the wrong thing to strive for, to make yourself bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, because you're doing that you're just doing that, I feel like, at your own peril, right? Because at some point, then what you believed in is not even there anymore. You're just doing it because you're doing it.
Yeah.
Which also, that sounds like a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like people's mindsets.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We're just doing this because this is what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
But not really.
And that's the thing, right? So like, if I lose that interaction with my team, what's the point? You know what I mean? If I walk in and I don't know my line cook's name, that bugs the shit. I mean, like, there'll be a new hire that happens now, and I'm like, what's the name again? Yeah. And then I have to, and like, I beat myself up about it. Like, I mean, I know other restaurateurs in the city with multiple restaurants that don't even read their Yelp reviews. I read every one.
Oh man.
I read them all. I read them all, and like, and it eats me alive.
It's terrible for you.
And I'm like, fuck, dude. I'm like, what do you mean you don't like my fucking spaghetti? Are you out of your mind? I go, everybody likes my spaghetti. And like, so what I've been trying to do is, whenever I do get to it, I only read the top 3. So like, if 17 come in, I still only read the top 3.
Don't do it.
And it's just like, but there's days where like I'll go 3 or 4 weeks and I won't read it, and then I'm like, oh man, I'm having a rough day today, and I just start going through them all, and I'm like,
yeah. That's
and then
that's
I'm like,
using
oh my God, drive me crazy.
Like,
Yeah.
Don't.
Oh
Yeah.
And it drives you crazy. But there are chefs that like literally don't care about what other people say. But in the same sense, it's like there's both extremes, right? You don't care enough, or you care too much. I'm on the care too much part right now, and I got to tone it back a little bit.
Yeah.
But I tried. If somebody had a really shitty review, but the staff's job is to stay on top of it. So I'm like, if I look at it and I see somebody that hasn't been responded to in a week, I'm like, if they're like, oh, but you had a good experience. Yeah, dude. Tell them thank you. You wrote a fucking review about how great the food was. Yeah. I go to the other guy, explain to him, sorry, we had an off night, but you know what? Why don't you come back in and come in on a Tuesday? I know on Friday you had to wait an hour and a half for your table. We apologize, but if Jesus Christ tried walking in at that time, he would have had to wait for an hour and a half. I try to like have that fun with them, and like, everybody. I was like, my wife walks in, she's got an hour and a half wait. My parents walk in, they have an hour and a half wait. There's nothing I can do at this point.
Yeah.
But my kids walk in, they get to eat right away. But it's a different story. Like it's like
that's because they'll burn the place down around you.
For real.
I just think you should just. I just feel like don't engage.
Yeah. No, I know.
I mean,
it gets frustrating. What I've found since COVID though is it's gotten worse. Like these yelpers have gotten worse. They're out of their mind.
That's why I'm just. I don't know. The thing is that like, as much as everybody wants to see you be successful, they can't wait for your
they can't
shit to fall down.
Dude,
they cannot wait.
What I learned the most from COVID, a couple things. One, it's all about karma. Whatever you put out in the world, you're gonna get back. You put out there being a good person, and you really give a shit about the people that work for you, they're gonna want to work hard for you.
Yeah.
Design a culture that everyone's gonna want to work for. Whether it's a culture where if you're an asshole, you're 86, or whether it's a culture of, because like that's the thing, like I'd say to everybody, I was like, I don't care if you're the best line cook this restaurant's ever seen. If I don't want to work with you, I'm not working with you. Like if you come in with a chip on your shoulder and you're angry all the time, I don't care how good you cook. I'll put somebody else in, I'll train them to cook just as good. And the last thing I learned is like nobody truly gives a shit about you but the people you love and yourself, right? Like, you know, all we had was white gold when COVID hit at that point. This restaurant was being built. So like, you know, a lot of people stopped coming in. You went from doing, you know, a certain amount of money to doing like $3,000 a week. Yeah. You know, to the point where I literally shut the doors down and sold pasta on the sidewalk and made more money. Yeah. Selling dry pasta and fresh pasta on the sidewalk. So that, like, you know, imagine, you know, a youngish chef, I'm 37, coming up in Atlanta. It's my first restaurant, I'm about to open up a second one. The humble that I became and how quickly my ego got slashed in half, to the point now where I follow the people on Instagram. I worry about myself. I stay in my fucking lane. I don't bother anybody else. If somebody has shit to say, then let them fucking harp on it. It's not my problem. I'll sit here. I'll continue to do the same stuff. Like, you know, I mean, you know, ex-employers you work for and stuff like that. They're not having you have restaurants next to them and all that crap. But at the end of the day, it's like there's plenty to go around. Why don't you just be a little more excited for the fact that we're going to do this together? You know, so it definitely got frustrating for sure, but it definitely humbled the shit out of me for sure. Like I'm like, you know what, man, I'm gonna worry about me, worry about my restaurant,
reprioritize.
Yeah, and that's it. You know, and I'm gonna worry about my family, make sure everybody's healthy. Like, you know, call my mom every day, call my dad every day. You know what I mean? And like just spend the time. Now, granted, we ended up working more because you know you have to let go. We had 112 people hired on March 13th. On March 17th, there were 17.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a sinking ship.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, closing Better Half was absolutely devastating. Yeah. But I'm really thankful that it was done when it was done.
Yeah.
At least at that point, it was closed on my own terms.
Of course.
Versus just being. I mean, that's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
Is to close a restaurant that's full.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And to especially after the insane amount of work that went into getting it full, because it was not full for 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it took forever to get it where it was.
Yeah.
But, I wouldn't want to do what y'all have had to do going through this. And on top of just keeping everybody safe, now everybody is real. Everybody's real weird.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Just nobody. Because nobody knows what they're supposed to do.
No.
Nobody knows how to act because nobody's in charge anymore.
Yeah, and there's no directness.
No,
and
it's a mess.
It's becoming so frustrating. Like, people walk in with the mask, you walk in without a mask, they start arguing. We're like, please put a mask on. No, you're not my boss. So on and so forth. I'm like,
yeah, man.
You know, what do you do at the end of the day? Like, you know, you still have you know 70 employees that need to make a living, or we're back to the unemployment line.
Yeah.
And which isn't helpful for our government either. So it's like, right now there is no, and you know, it's so funny. Last week, now I try not to talk about politics on here, but last week, Kemp and Bottoms were arguing on Twitter. I wanted to send them a tweet and be like, hey guys, table 41 isn't occupied right now at Grana. Why don't you guys come down? Let's have a pizza. I'll help you guys do this. I'll mediate this. Let's really figure this out. You know, because you guys doing that on national press is not helping anybody. All it's doing is pissing everybody off and just dividing it even more. That's all that's happening.
But they don't care.
They don't care. It's mind-boggling. Yeah. So let me ask you something. So Dirt Church Ceramics comes out. explain to people how they can order stuff from you if you want them to. And then also, like, make sure they're following you on Instagram. But, you know, we kind of chatted about it a little bit, and, you know, you can share if you want to, but, you know, you're doing the ceramics, you're doing the cooking in the houses. What's next? Is there something next? What do you want to do next? Where do you see yourself? You know, like, and that cliche, where are you 5 years? What is the goal? What's the next goal for you?
That's the thing that right now is that 5 years from now feels like, you know, we're going to be fighting the robot soldiers in nuclear winter type scenario.
Right.
So I'm not planning like that right now because everything is absolutely batshit crazy.
Yeah, up in the
like
air.
I can't imagine looking for spaces or what, you know. So, you know, I have some ideas where I'm just trying to constantly make things smaller and smaller and smaller, and kind of more like monastic in a sense. Like I really like the idea of just being like the weirdo monk that's over in the corner.
I love it.
And so yeah, like currently I'm doing, you know, in-home private dinners where I'm bringing that kind of whole supper club experience to the guests, you know. But in this case, now it's like, you know, I'm growing my own ingredients in the backyard, 100 feet away from where the dishes are being produced. So it's like this closed circle scenario, right? And then, you know, taking it to a client. I'm also doing, I've had to kind of, I'm in the process of putting together a website. I think the hardest part about all this, like, you know, in putting out the Dirt Church name or the, you know, the kind of the private chef thing is that I don't even know what it's supposed to look like, right? So it's like developing the idea while I'm having to make money off of said idea. So I have a website that I am really close to having go live, and you'll be able to book dinners through this website. Nice. The ceramics are going to be more on kind of a commission base because what I'm really trying to do, I mean, there's thousands of ceramics, you know, producers out there. And I'm finding that it's not that different than being kind of a restaurant owner, and you have to I have to define what's my style and what am I trying to do. And so really what I'm moving towards is less of like selling one or two mugs to somebody, is what you and I have been working on, where it's like, I want to be able to interact with a client, a chef, a cook, someone that's really kind of invested in what they're doing. And I want to be able to kind of create your own, you know, set of dishes that you feel like you had a hand in designing, and then produce them in kind of like a larger format, right? So to do more of like commission-based work instead of the kind of wild garage sale scenario, which has been absolutely insane.
Do you have a lot of one-offs that you sell off though, or no?
I do every now and again. Like
awesome.
when the shelves get too full, it's like, okay, it's time to just like, you know, get it.
Let me ask you something. Is that like, I know it's a business now, but it's funny because is it a Zen moment for you when you're doing that? Like, or are you right now, is it all just work? Because like for me, like I'm weird as fuck when I'm about to share with you, but like my Zen moment when I'm having a really shitty day, I throw myself in that corner downstairs or a white bowl, I get on the pasta machine, I start rolling out pasta, and I listen to three people: Cher, Celine Dion, and Andrea Bocelli.
Is it a mix?
It's a mix, dude, and it's also my gym mix, which is fantastic.
That's your gym mix?
My gym mix, dude. I get amped, dude. I get amped up on that shit, man.
No way.
But you know what?
Serial killers crank it up.
But it's like for me, it was like it's my Zen moment of me realizing, because even when I'm at the gym or you know anything, like that's my only time, right? So like I use it as meditation, right? Like I'll get to meditate once a day. I only get to do it for about 10 minutes, but in the same aspect of it, it's like that to me is more meditating than meditating. You know, like I have the headphones on, I'm listening to, you know.
But what's meditation?
Yeah, I know. It's just fucking breathing and just collecting your thoughts.
Yeah, but the breathing part, right, is your basic process, right? That's literally, you know, that's your shot clock. You've got, you know, however many seconds until you're dead, so you gotta take the other. I mean, but so our prep as cooks, or my prep as, you know, in the ceramic studio is the breathing, right? So when you're focusing on cranking out Cavatelli,
Yeah.
or you know, that's your breathing, right? So that is meditation,
Yeah.
which is where the whole dirt church idea came from. Is that, I mean, it's a little irreverent because that's something that I got raised up in the Southern church,
Yeah.
but also in and of itself, just like working with clay. It's really easy to just see how you could write another religion just based on clay, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a whole lot of insight, life insight,
Yeah.
in working with something like that, and that's something that really means a lot to me.
Yeah.
So that's why it's really important for me to kind of try and fold in this element, right, where it's like, hey, you know, here's this, you know, peach salad that, you know, the peaches grew on the tree, you know, up front.
Yeah.
I produced a dish.
Yeah.
Over here, I, you know, smoked the peaches with peach wood.
Yeah.
The peach leaves from last year's tree were, you know, burned, turned into ash, and mixed into the glaze.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a peach.
Yeah.
And that's meditation.
Yeah.
It all just comes down to like, I don't care if anyone thinks that it's cool. Like now that I don't have to have the restaurant where it's like this. It's like high school, you know, where you always got to make sure you're looking side to side, make sure that you're still cool, right?
Yeah, all the time.
And you know, now I'm at the point where it's like I don't really care, you know, because you know, you go through that kind of just like endless cycle, and after a while, it just kind of breaks you to bits. And so now I have an opportunity to just be quiet.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing.
I love it.
It's really amazing. So
I love it.
I'm really thankful. I am admittedly kind of like came from Kung Fu a little bit, where it's just kind of like I'm just wandering around. And it's like, if you know how to reach out type thing, and maybe I can do a dinner for you, or hey, if you want to, you know, order a whole bunch of dishes, we can work something out too. Eventually, it's all going to come together. Like, you know, I have, you know, an idea for this kind of like really immersive experience that I'll be able to provide for everybody, but I can't even begin to start digging deep in that while we have so much insecurity around us outside, right?
That's
so,
impossible.
I mean, the big focus now is just to make sure that my people are good, and you know, to just go down the list every day and just try and, I always try and find at least one person and be like, I haven't said anything to that person for a while. I just want to say, hey.
Yeah, we just reach out.
Because you never really know, right?
No,
and just until
it's important. I try to do it once a week. Try to do it once a week. Reach out to somebody that you haven't reached out to in a while. See how they're doing. You know what I mean? Just something. You never know. You never know if that person needs anything. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, and sometimes it's the people that work at the restaurants that you maybe not be able to get to a lot. And sometimes it's like, you know, a high school friend.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's important though, man. I do believe in that for sure.
It's crazy.
Yeah, man.
It's wild to be a grown up out here.
I know. It's crazy because nobody ever. I mean, you could never see this coming, but it's just like, oh my God, it's insane right now with the world.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know if I'm thankful for the fact
that we lived through it.
That, you know, I was always under the impression that the adults knew what was up when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like finding out that was like complete and utter bullshit is comforting or truly alarming that we're still like operating in this space. But here we are.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Little by little.
So we're gonna wrap things up, but before we wrap things up, I always like to do a Spitfire challenge, right? Not challenge, but like just basically, I'm gonna give you two options and you pick one. You tell me which one you like more.
Okay.
All right. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
So it's funny. So you're like, so out of, I believe we've done 6 so far. It's 4-2 Coke and Pepsi. But the two Pepsi people, I'm like, oh man, I don't know if we can say this on air. This might not work out too well. Yeah.
Yeah, but do you find anybody from the South that says Pepsi?
No, it's always from the North, for sure. It's always from the North. Because where I grew up, Stamford, Connecticut, Rye, New York was right there.
Yeah.
So Rye is where Pepsi was. So like, it's not that we never had Coke. We just always had Pepsi.
Of course.
It wasn't until I came down here until I like basically stopped drinking soda.
Look, man,
but in the same sense, it's like Coke. If I were to drink one now, it'd be Coke. So.
I mean, I like looking at those things because it's kind of like it's the exact same thing as religion, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, you like Pepsi because that's what everyone drank.
Yeah.
It's Pepsi.
Yeah.
That's why Pepsi tastes better to you. It's
Yeah.
the same thing where it's like,
Yeah.
Everyone here had Duke's mayonnaise. Oh, you like Hellman's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's the exact same thing as religion.
Yeah.
Only we don't fight wars over mayonnaise.
No, but we didn't even. There was no such thing as Dukes in the North. It didn't even exist. I think it's like, I believe it's Virginia or DC, and then after that there is no Dukes. But it was crazy to me when I came down here. I was like, you guys been hiding this shit down here in the South.
Yeah, it's
this
so
long.
funny too.
I was like, my God, this is delicious.
I like them all.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the Japanese one? Kupai?
Cupid.
Cupid? Yeah, Cupid.
Whoa.
Dude, insane. Insane. Yeah.
I was joking that mayonnaise is my blood type.
That's fucking great. Pizza or pasta?
Pizza.
So it's funny because you make pasta, but you just rather have pizza. That's what you want to eat on a daily basis.
Food.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like everything that has the word pizza in it.
Yeah.
Even bad pizza's pizza.
I know, man. I know. It's so funny when you have those conversations because bad pasta is not pasta.
That's
Bad pasta is
entirely
just awful.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad pizza
bad
is
pizza, I mean, there's different tiers,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
from pizza flavored Pringles all the way
Yeah.
up to like the super fancy pants Sicilian pizza or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And everything in between.
Yeah.
Pizza for life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's great.
Hot, cold. It's on the very short list of foods that are better or can be every bit as good, if not better, the next day.
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. My go-to, so I'm not a huge fan of leftovers at all.
Yeah.
Even though like I kind of live off them now because I meal prep and then I just kind of live off the leftovers.
Yeah.
But like my only thing that I really enjoyed eating as a leftover was lasagna. It just tastes better the second day.
Fried lasagna.
Yeah, that shit's delicious. It's delicious, man.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a chef in New York City that's pan fried baked ziti.
Yeah.
Looks so good, man. Looks so fucking good, yeah. OTP or ITP?
Oh man, panic moment. Panic moment, because I want to try and blow all of it up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say OTP.
It's slowed down a little bit over there. That's what I kind of like about OTP.
That's
Like,
why
it's not
it's
that
good.
life's slower, but life does slow down a little. Like, so when I moved to Atlanta from Connecticut, I was like, I'm gonna slow my life down a little bit. I'm gonna, spend more time focusing on it. And then I get here and I hit the ground running and like never got to slow it down. So that's why I told my wife, I was like, spend a couple more years in ITP, get the kids through school, and then OTP for sure, without a doubt.
I just feel like oh man, there's so many. I don't know. There's so many differences, right?
Oh yeah.
But I feel like it's nice to be able to slow down. I also feel like the whole the hustle of being the cool guy in town is super overrated.
Yeah.
And I also don't think that the things that are being promoted as cool are cool at all.
No, of course.
I love where I'm from.
Yeah.
And I think that Atlanta has so much potential, and it's not living up to it. And it's like, but that's because it's kind of just conservative nature in general. That even when you're in around the more creative in-town move, it's still got a ways to go.
There's a lot of cool spots in Atlanta just popping up though that I like.
Yeah.
Like areas like I mean Inman, forget it, but like even now with Germantown and Reynoldstown and like that whole Grant Park scene, like everything on Memorial is insane. So my thing with like OTP ITP is right now, and it kind of not even has to do with that, but I'm really pumped for the next 5 years of hopefully shit going back to normal, but the next 5 years of restaurant openings and stuff like that, because it's all people like you and I used to be like that are now opening restaurants that are gonna sit here and like there's a sous chef that works for so and so that doesn't want to do fucking high-end French but wants to do like badass Vietnamese food, and he's gonna fucking do it and it's gonna be amazing. And he's gonna open up a fucking 30 square foot space in Ponce or wherever somewhere and he's gonna crush it.
Right.
That's a shout for like
I think that the biggest thing that makes answering the ITP OTP question like it's impossible to answer is that all that is built on racism. And so it's hard, and that's a hard spot for me to be in too, right? Because I was raised, being upper middle class white male from the burbs out there, you know, puts me in a position where it's like I'm like the 1% wealthiest globally speaking, right? And so it's just, I mean, it needs to go away in general. What really needs to happen more than anything else is that people need to be able to move. It needs to be more inclusive, you know. But that's like, just watch how they keep voting down the expansion of MARTA, and there's one reason why, and it's like, it makes me feel crazy. But I like being where I have at least just a little bit of elbow room. But I hate the fact that it's like it's just like O'Charlie's after Applebee's, after Chili's, after Panera Bread, because it's lazy, right?
For sure.
It's lazy.
Absolutely.
And so it's really tough because, you know, in town it's like they're hustling to try and figure out what the hell they're going to do. But that's where something good actually comes from. But the fact that you have this huge area outside that just blocks it off is...
No, I agree.
It sucks.
I agree.
You know?
Ingredients or technique?
Technique.
All right. DC or Marvel?
Ooh. I don't have a dog in that fight. I didn't get raised in that church.
Do you like either one or not?
I mean, I read Asterix books when I was and those Tintin books when I was a kid. I would say Marvel. I guess if I were gonna pick one.
And then this is the one that, like, anytime I have a chef on, it always gets a toss up. Spring or fall ingredients?
Oh.
Because I'll tell you, for me, it's always been fall because I like the colors. I'm colorblind, so when it has like shit like that, because like spring is green, everything's fucking green.
Yeah.
But then for the fall, you get all these colors. You got you got the dark blues, you got the oranges, you got all that stuff, and that's fun for me.
Okay.
But I also like those flavors like squash. I like all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like in the last few, probably like a year and a half, 2 years, I think it's actually being like a chef in Atlanta and being able to readily order from farmers. Where Connecticut they really haven't like that. There were a few farms, but there weren't a ton.
Yeah,
here it's
like
there's thousands of farms.
From? Is it just like New York? Is kind of like just
New York. There's some places in Connecticut for sure, but like you gotta remember, like to buy an acre in Fairfield County, Connecticut, it's $750,000. So like you're not farming it. You're putting a house on it. Nobody's farming it. Nobody can make money on $750,000. So it's like they don't really do it.
Yeah.
Farther up you go, and you're never gonna get the produce.
Right.
But like here, it's like you could drive 2 miles and find a fucking farm. Period.
Yeah.
Or you're growing it yourself in your backyard.
Yeah.
So I think like being able to get, and it's not even like peas or anything like that. It's like, it's stinging nettle. Yeah. Stuff like that. I'm like, oh shit, man, this is gonna be a lot of fun. And so for me, the switch definitely went to spring. Forever it was fall, but the switch definitely went to spring.
I'm going spring.
Yeah.
I'm going spring.
Are you a Merle mushroom guy?
For sure. No, not really. I mean, I love them.
Yeah.
But also
ramps.
Yeah, although ramps have taken a second because I got tricked into eating the first ramp that I ever had. I didn't know what it was.
Okay.
And then someone gave it to me and I ate it raw, and it just like blasted me.
Yeah.
So we're working it out.
Yeah.
I gotta talk to my therapist.
That's it, man. I love it.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you, man, so much for being on here, man. I really
me,
appreciate it. Again, dude, I'm a fucking huge fan, so thank you so much. And hopefully we can get some plates going for my stomach.
Y'all come eat some pizza.
Yeah, for sure. Please do.
All right.
Thanks, bro.